6:30. Welcome everybody to Executive Board this evening. Because we have from the resident survey, closing it after the formal bits, we'll take that as the first substantive item. Is that agreeable to everybody? Okay, thank you. So the first item on the agenda is the evacuation procedure. And that is, on hearing the evacuate signal, please carry out the following. Exit the building by your nearest safest exit. All visitors report to assembly point G. All staff report to their designated assembly point on Wolfpack Way car park. Do not leave the assembly point for any reason until told to do so by the incident controller or fire brigade officer. Very cool. Item number 2 is apologies for absence. Members away on official council business. We have one apology from Dave Riley, substitute Andy Jens. Item number 3 is disclosable pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Item 4, public participation. I don't think there's any questions.
No questions received. No.
Thank you, Steve. Item number 5 is the minutes of the Executive Board held on the 27th of November last year. I'll move those from the chair, seconded by Councillor Ridley. All those in favour? Thank you. So if we move now to what is item number 9 on your agenda, which is the Resident Survey 2023, whereby the report details the results of the Resident Survey carried out last year, highlighted key messages and findings. A total of 1,012 residents have undertaken the detailed survey, and the report provides an extremely useful set of results that give an excellent insight into the main issues in the borough from the residents' perspective. There are a number of issues that highlight additional action which the council will want to undertake, and a further report will be brought back to the next meeting of the board setting out that action. There are also a number of issues on which the council can feel extremely proud, particularly that 88% of residents are satisfied with their local area as a place to live, which is 13 percentage points above the national average, and that 76% of residents are satisfied with how the council runs things, which is 20 percentage points above the national average. DJS Market Research, as I said before, have joined us online this evening to briefly summarise the survey and its findings, and members are asked to invited to ask questions and comment on the main issues. So I shall hand over to Julie, I think it is, from DJS Marketing, and welcome. Thank you, Julie.
Good evening, thank you. We've got Jamie on the call as well, who's worked with me on this research. Was going to present the findings, but unfortunately he's lost his voice tonight. So if there's any questions, you might quietly type in the background, but I'll take you through the kind of key finding. Can you all see that okay on the screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So start just covering a bit of the background and how we went about the research. So the aim was kind of to gauge residents' opinions on a wide range of issues. And to do that, we surveyed just over 1,000 residents aged 16 plus. And we did that through a mixture of telephone interviewing and face-to-face interviewing, so roughly half and half. And the interviews all took place between the 20th of November and the 7th of January, so just a couple of months ago. And we made sure that the sample is representative of residents across North Warwickshire by setting some quotas by age, gender, disability, ethnicity and working status. And then where there was a slight variation, we've applied some weight into the data to make sure it is representative of your local population. So I've mentioned just over 1,000 responses in total, which is a good sample. We can have good confidence in the results. And we also got a good number in each of your 4 ward clusters. So we've included some analysis by these ward clusters that gives you an idea of how many we spoke to in each of those. We start off first of all about perceptions of the local area. So we asked everybody overall, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with your local area as a place to live? And overall, 88% are satisfied, with half being very satisfied. And that does compare well to the benchmark, so the LGA national and regional comparisons, 75% and 80%. So your 88% fares very well, with just 6% saying that they're dissatisfied with the area that they live. And there's also a difference in terms of being those economically active, seeming to be more satisfied with where they live. We then asked about safety, so how safe do residents feel during the day and after dark? And overall, 94% said they feel like very safe or safe during the day in their local area. However, that does drop to 62% in terms of how safe people feel after dark. Just 28% feeling very safe, 34% fairly safe. And then the figures below, which is the national benchmark, and then the regional figures. So during the day, quite similar results really to the benchmarks, but after dark, your figures are 62%. It is lower than the kind of national average. So that, you know, something that perhaps should be aware of, that your residents are feeling slightly less safe after dark than compared to in other areas. We've just delved into that one a bit more detail in terms of the safety after dark, looking at it by age, disability, gender, and also the ward clusters. And it tends to be the older population, 65 plus, who are feeling less safe after dark, as well as those with a disability, and females, such as 53% of females saying that they feel safe after dark compared to 71% of males, and similarly about half of those with a disability or health condition. And then by the ward clusters, it seems fairly similar in 3 of them, but that it seems to be higher, or feeling of, you know, more likely to feel safe in the east cluster compared to the others. So some subgroups just to be aware of how it differs. In terms of council services, so first of all, overall, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with the way North Warwickshire Borough Council runs things? This, I think, as you mentioned just before, is one that you do compare well against the national and regional benchmarks. So overall, 76% are satisfied, either very or fairly satisfied with how the council runs things, and just 10% dissatisfied. And that compares to 56 and 59% of the LGA benchmark. So kind of well ahead really in terms of those figures. So hopefully something that you're pleased to see. We also asked more sort of specific about specific aspects of the local area or local services, and asked all residents to rate both how important each of these are, and also how satisfied they are with each of these. And we basically plotted these on this chart on the side here, on an axis from how they perform, so sort of, well, the ones that are least satisfied to most satisfied, and then on an importance rating. So in the top blue quadrant, they're the ones that you perform well on, or above average, and they're also high importance. Whereas down the sort of darker pink area, they're the aspects that residents consider most important, but aren't quite so satisfied with. So in terms of street cleaning and resolves things right, or gets things right first time, they're the aspects that you consider priorities really to focus on if you're looking to improve satisfaction further. They're the 2 aspects where at the moment sort of performing lower than average, but they are important aspects to residents. So in terms of priorities, they would be the 2 that would be best sort of focused on to improve your overall satisfaction even further. Whereas the darker blue, they're things perhaps you want to sort of promote, really. They're important aspects and things that you are rated quite favourably on. So things you might want to perhaps celebrate and you emphasise because they are important aspects to the community. In terms of acting on the concerns of residents, so to what extent do they think the council acts on the concerns of local residents? 58% either think you do a great deal or a fair amount, although the vast majority of those are a fair amount rather than a great deal. And this is slightly above the benchmark, so quite similar really to the, well, certainly in terms of the regional benchmark, so 58 versus 55%. Although, well, around a third feeling that you don't, either not very much or not at all, you don't act on the concerns of residents, but that is lower than the benchmark, so something's perhaps quite common across a lot of areas, and there's quite a significant minority who don't think that's the case. We then also asked about value for money. So do you think that £229 represents good value for the services provided by the council? And overall 66%, so around 2/3 in agreement that what they pay is considered a good value for money. So 21% are strongly agreeing, 45% tend to agree. And we've just broken that out a little bit by the age and also their tenure. So younger, well, 35 to 44 age groups tend to more likely to be in agreement that they're getting value for money. And also residents who rent either from the council or privately, they tend to be more in agreement with the value for money than those who own their accommodation. But overall, 17% disagree that the council tax provides good value for money. Then looking at some more sort of more detailed aspects of your service, so they're asked to rate the extent to which they agree or disagree with each of these, from strongly agree down to strongly disagree. So in terms of the aspect that are rated most favourably, 70% are in agreement that North Warwickshire Borough Council has staff who are friendly and polite. And then after some margin, really, I suppose 55% is the next one that's most in agreement. 55% think that the council is making the local area a better place for people to live. And a similar, just over half, thinks that you're easy to contact. If we then go further sort of down the rank order, so at the bottom there, involves residents when making decisions. Just 29% are in agreement there, with around 38% disagreeing. So that's kind of the aspect that they're less likely to think that the council is doing well on. So involving residents in decisions, and also just a third saying resolves things fully and gets things right first time, which is one of the aspects we focused on earlier in that matrix when we saw that as an important aspect for people. In terms of communications, so overall, how well informed do you think that the council keeps residents about the services and benefits it provides? And 58% overall think that, well, feel like they're very well informed or fairly well informed, although again, only 10% really saying that they're very well informed. So there is, although the majority are in agreement there that if they feel informed, there is some room for improvement. But overall, that compares quite well or similar to the benchmarks, either regionally or nationally. So very similar results. In terms of leisure facilities, so we asked for each of these leisure facilities whether they currently use it, so the blue bars. If they don't use it, would they consider doing so? Or if they don't, the pink bars, basically they don't use it and they don't think they would use it, so they wouldn't consider it. So overall, the Athelston Leisure Centre and swimming pools, 20% and 24% are currently using those facilities, with around 2/5 saying that they don't at the moment, but they would consider using those. And overall, when we sort of combine the figures from all of these facilities, the residents overall, so about 2/5 are using any of these facilities at all. A similar proportion saying that they would consider using the facilities, whereas about 1 in 4 residents don't at the moment and wouldn't consider doing so. So of those that aren't using the facilities, we asked them basically why do you not currently use the facilities that we just talked about. And the biggest reason really is just that they're not interested. They've got no motivation. So around 1 in 4 giving those reasons, followed by location. So it's not convenient, or they go elsewhere for these types of facilities, or alternatively they prefer to exercise in different ways. And 12% saying that they've got poor health. And we've just drawn out some differences there so there was obviously differences particularly by age. The younger residents more likely to say that they go elsewhere or exercise in different ways. And they're also significantly more likely to indicate that the expense is a barrier. So they're saying that it's too expensive, they can't afford it. Whereas for the older residents, they're more likely to cite reasons of poor health or location or their age. There's some differences in terms of the different demographics just for you to have a look at. And we then asked, just those words really, is there anything that would encourage them to use the facilities more? An overall cost comes out top there. So 1 in 5 citing cost as a reason, about half saying there's nothing really that's going to make a difference because they're just not interested, they've got no motivation. But where they are, if there was something that was going to make a difference, cost seems to be the main thing. And that's particularly so amongst the younger age groups. So 42% of 16 to 34-year-olds saying, amongst the ones who aren't currently using facilities, that price is kind of the main thing that would encourage them to do so. Then ask some questions on recycling and the environment. They're looking first of all at the household recycler or the curbside recycling collection service. So just over 90% of all residents saying that they use the curbside collection service, and just over 3/4 saying that they use the household recycling centres. And then we've just broken out those into the different ward clusters. So across all 4, just over 90% are using them. And then for the recycling centres, usage seems to be lower in the south. It's 70%, and highest in the east. So there's some differences there by your clusters. We asked them whether there was anything in particular that's preventing them from using either of the 2 different services. And in most cases, the majority of residents are basically saying they use them as much as they can. They use them when they need to. The main thing really, I suppose, for the recycling centres, the one thing that perhaps jumps out slightly is about the booking facility or the need to go online to book. Although 61% are saying that they use it as much as they possibly can. I suppose if there was one thing that's sort of preventing them a little bit, it seems to be the booking system. 11% are saying that they don't think they should have to book. Some of them just saying they don't need it. Things about too far away, but small proportions, 3% saying the appointment booking is too complicated. So overall 13% mentioning something to do with the booking system that's a bit of a barrier for them, but obviously it is in the minority overall though. And then in terms of priorities, so what would you say are the top priorities for you or your household currently? And overall, the cost of living crisis and the energy costs come out top as the reasons or the top factors that are current priorities for residents. And that's particularly so amongst the younger age groups. 61% of 16 to 34-year-olds actually mention about energy costs, and 68% of that youngest group mentioned about the cost of living. So obviously a particular issue for younger residents. And then third place, access to local health facilities, and followed by affordable housing. And affordable housing is mentioned more so, again, 16 to 34-year-olds. Seems to be particularly an issue for them, as well as ethnic minority groups, economically active, and also people who are currently renting. Access to local health facilities, more of a priority or more of a concern at the moment for 35 to 44-year-olds, and also the minority ethnic groups. But otherwise, other issues coming out there about health access to well-paid jobs, but obviously much more of a minority compared to the top 3 or 4 issues that dominate. And then we asked if you could see your local area 10 years from now, what is the single biggest change you would like to see? And the top thing that was meant, or these are the top 6 basically that we've picked out here, that high street investment came out top with 11% mentioning that they'd like to see some investment on the high street. 9% looking or hoping to see lower crime rates, safer streets, which probably goes back to some of those things we saw earlier, particularly after dark, and 8% mentioning affordable housing. And then we also included some questions about honouring the life of service of Queen Elizabeth. So we asked people to select which, well, 3 up to 3, or rank the top 3 that they would like to see, or the most sort of fitting memorial. And overall 85% included a memorial garden or woodland in their top 3. But overall half chose that as their first, or their priority really. So overall they, well, getting on for 90% have a preference towards that option, but half chose that as their most preferred option of the ones that we gave them. They could actually suggest other things, but very few people did. But that gives you some indication of what people would most like to see. And that is it in terms of what we've picked out. I mean, the overall report, I think you've probably had circulated, and it's, I think, about 60, 70 slides, so there's a lot more detail beneath this, but we've just tried to pick out some of the kind of key highlights for you to give you a flavour of what we found. Just let us know if there's any questions or anything you want me to go back over.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Julie. Has anybody got any? Councillor Bosley.
Thanks. Sorry, I'll put my mic on. Oh, it's in. It's kind of regarding the analysis of statistics and samplings and how the stratas were doing. I've noticed from the ward breakdown specifically that there seems to be an imbalance of data for the wards. So I think if we're looking at, I think the ones that really stand out, Coleshill North and Coleshill South. I've got notes on this one. Coleshill North and Coleshill South obviously have a similar population, and yet there's over 4 times more respondents from Coleshill South than there is in the north. And there seems to be a similar disparity with other areas. And again, in the age brackets, we have a very significant influx. There's a very significantly high response from the 65 to 75-year-old bracket, which doesn't represent 20% of our population, but does represent 20% of the survey. I'm just wondering if there's anything in the way that the sampling has been done which could have affected the kind of the stratification of the sampling, and whether or not you've done any additional statistical testing on the relevance of these final figures. Thanks.
Yeah, I think the figures you look, because is that the unweighted samples that you're looking at, because we have weighted the data to correct for any overrepresentation. So we, in the data tables, we in the report, I think we've quoted how many we spoke to in total at an unweighted level, but we did also weight the data back by geography and by age, gender, to make sure that it was representative. So at an unweighted level, it might seem like there was more than what there should have been, but we have weighted the data to correct for that, just to make sure it is representative.
Could you explain a bit more about how you've done it?
How we've weighted it?
Yeah. Yes, please.
We've basically took so local population figure, so that in terms of what your population looks like by age, gender, ward, we've basically weighted it to those percentages, so it reflects your local population. I could get the exact. We probably could send across the exact figures in terms of what the unweighted profile was versus the weighted one, weighted profile. If you wanted to have a look at it, that would help.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Just one question for me on the information and communication. How well informed? I noticed from the figures there was owners, rent, people that rent, and then other. What would the other be? Would they be business owners, or you said there was? I think it was 40% said they were not well informed, but they were other. Just, I can't remember what slide it was on now.
I think it'll be things like shared ownership. I think we asked whether they rent, own, or it could be something else. I think shared ownership might have been one of them. Yeah, living at home as well. I think like living with parents.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chairman. I would appreciate a little bit more tutoring on how to read some of the results, because as we were going through, there were some where the measures appeared to be contradictory. So if you ask a positive question, you get this, and a sort of a more negative question, you get a different answer. So I would be interested to see how you interpret them. And I'll just use this as an example. Those who don't use the leisure facilities because it's too expensive is 9%, and those who would use it more if it cost less is 21%. They just don't feel to be giving me the same message. So some of that, I'm sure, is the question, and it's different groups. But there were 2 or 3 things as we went through where it seemed like there was a variance in the measure. So is there a more tutored response to how we take some of these responses?
Let me just have a look. I think those 2, I think one of them was prompted and one was unprompted. I think the ones that you're looking at, let me just double check for you. Question 17, question 18.
That was just 2 or 3 that I noticed as we went through.
Yeah, I think we asked it 2 different ways. So one was, I think we prompted them with some reasons, and the second one was when we just let them tell us.
So we ask, I'm going to use my voice, what little I've got a bit. So question 17, we asked just of those who do not use any of the facilities. So it's a slightly different base that we're looking at. And question 18 and 19, which are related as well, we ask of all respondents, so the base is all respondents regardless of whether or not you use a facility or not, but they are asked in different ways, like Julie said. So question 18 is unprompted and question 19 is prompted, so that could be reasons why you get slightly different results. So one is top of mind, so the unprompted response, then you get into more detailed prompted.
Thank you. I just want to show one of the other things that I picked up on with that was, do you feel safe at night? And that seemed to be a relatively low percentage. But then some of the things that you would do about it, again, were all scored pretty low levels of agreement about how to fix it. Okay, all the questions are slightly different, so I can understand they're going to get slightly different answers, but sometimes it did seem to be pulling in 2 directions at the same time. But that's not intended as a criticism. It's more intended as how do I interpret what it's.
Which question do you think it was lower then for this in terms of how you solve it?
It's like, do we have more police? Do we have more of this?
I've got Councillor Gosling and then Councillor Simmons.
It's just on a similar point to Councillor Simpson's. On the leisure facilities, it's quite clear that there's a large, 42%, 49%, 37%, 53% of people that won't use your individual sports centres, but only a quarter then that won't use any. So it just seems a little bit inconsistent across the. I'm not quite sure how those statistics have kind of arrived at that conclusion.
It's when we combine them all. So I think so when we count everybody just once, that's what the overall figures are. So some of them, so individually, the figures are higher for like that particular facility. But when we combine everybody and just count people once in terms of whether they're using any of them, And if they're not, would they consider using any of them? And then if they're not, wouldn't consider any of them, but they wouldn't use any and wouldn't consider any of them. Would it leave 24% that wouldn't consider any of those 4 that we asked them about? But yeah, when you look at them individually, it is higher because it's specific to that one.
Councillor Simmons.
Yeah, I was quite pleased to see the response from my area was pretty strong in comparison. And have you got a breakdown of these questions per ward? That's going to be my individual question, but also just to comment that I like the question about discretionary services, where they've extrapolated out from the 9% that want to stop or reduce discretionary services, but 58% of them don't know which things they'd stop. I quite like that. So stop it, but I don't know what. I quite like that. But yeah, it'd be quite interesting to see the ward, by ward as well. That'd be really interesting for me.
Yeah, you just need. I was going to say, yeah, Jamie's just put the same, but you need to be a little bit careful about the base sizes at ward level. That's why we've clustered them into the four different areas, because when you get down to sort of individual wards, the base sizes do start to get a little bit low. So yeah, the data is there, but you just need to be a bit careful when you go down to that level.
Okay. Well, I don't see anybody else indicating. So thank you very much for your time, Julie and Jamie. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And we'll look forward to seeing you again and acting on the results.
Yeah, that's great. But just let us know afterwards. Anything else comes to mind, we can send through any questions via Kath. So, all right. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Take care. Bye.
See you later.
Okay. So we'll move back now to item number 6, which is the Public Spaces Protection Order, dog fouling. The board has previously given authority for the council to consult on new public spaces protection order with regard to dog fouling. That consultation has now ended and the results are reported to this board. 423 people across the borough responded, of which 403 were in favour of the order being made. So I move the recommendation on that basis, unless anybody's got any questions or queries. No, Councillor Simmons. Oh, and seconded by Councillor Simmons. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That is unanimous. Item number 7. Is the safeguarding update. The report updates members on the authority's progress in respect of its safeguarding responsibilities, further to agreeing a new policy and procedure last year. In particular, details are given on the training given in the last year to officers and members, and raises the issue that the council is coming across more cases of potential suicide than in recent years. Particular work, including training, is taking place on this issue. Councillor Gosling.
Thank you. Welcome the changes in the updates. It's just noticed that I understand that it was focused on the suicide part of this, which is an important issue that we do need to address. But in the meantime, things like there's been a new working together in safeguarding and new definitions for child protection that have come out. And I think it would be a good opportunity to actually update the document with the most relevant legal script that we have. So on page 25,371, it talks about working together with children and education, safeguarding children 2018, that's now 2023. And I think some of the other policies might have changed as well.
Okay, I'm sure I'm seeing nods from Becky, so yes, and that will be updated to, yeah, as you described. Thank you. So, unless anybody's got any other comments or queries, I'll move it from the chair, seconded by...
I'll second it.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Dervix. All those in favour? Thank you, that is unanimous. Item number 8. Excuse me, is the Water Ordnance Conservation Area designation. So the report seeks the board's support for an extension to the conservation area for the village of Water Orton. Proposal to amend the Water Orton conservation area arises from an assessment undertaken in 2022 as part of the council's obligation to review conservation areas from time to time, as set out in legislation. Following some changes to the boundary, a further consultation was carried out in January 24, where 13 comments were received from 10 different people. A summary of these comments can be found in Appendix C. Most comments were positive or raised procedural points, but one resident submitted objections. Any comments, please? I've got Councillor Simpson and Councillor Dirks.
Thank you. I'd just like to move the recommendation. I think this is an excellent piece of work that's been undertaken diligently and professionally. In my view, it's overdue, and I think the sooner that we get it to the next meeting for council and adopt it, the better.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Dirks.
That is exactly what I was going to say, so I'll second it.
Fantastic.
Just
Okay.
before we
And
move,
congratulations to our officer on a very good piece of work.
Councillor Gosling.
thank you. It's just a query really about the post 1930s aspects of it in the photographs. You know, we all have these places in our walls that are characteristic, but yet we're not all afforded the same protections to the extent. And I realise that the centre of Water Orton and the historic aspects of it do give it special status. But it would be nice to look at other areas of our wards that we could, of our borough, sorry, that we could extend similar to.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure that it will be. Councillor Simpson.
Completely agreed, Chairman. That's exactly the conversation I've had with our conservation officer. The more areas that we can protect and the more we can review, the better. It's just a question of time and resources. Only the last time I looked, but the more we can do in this area, I think we would all absolutely agree with.
I know this is coming back, but could I take this opportunity to advertise the local listings that we are, through our heritage officer, being encouraged to contribute to the local listing of heritage assets around the borough, which may not actually tick all the boxes for the main listings, but can be included as worthy of note whenever any work is being done across the borough that involves planning.
Shall I take that as we have a couple more? Conservation officer.
Councillor Waffles.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, when we discussed this point before, it was noted that some of the neighbourhood plans have got extensive information in that may be relevant to use as a resource. So it's just that to note, really. Thank you.
Okay. So it has been moved and seconded. So all those in favour? Yeah, that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Item number 10 is the proposed 3-year capital programme 2024-25 to 2026-27. The report puts forward proposals for the 3-year capital programme and outlines the availability of capital resources to fund the programme. The report recommends the capital projects for 24-25 to 26-27 in Appendix B of the report. Councillor Gosling.
I was just going to query agenda item 9 again, because although I didn't have questions for the presentation, for the people presenting it, I did also have some comments that I would like to make. Have you closed the item completely?
Well, sort of, didn't we?
We just kind of moved on
went.
after the presentation.
Okay.
I think I've been in planning too long. I expect a discussion after the questioning.
Okay, wait, bear with me. It's the right page on the agenda. What? Okay, what questions have you got?
It was about the ward breakdowns, and I understand that they said that they have been weighted, but I did my own little bits of statistical analysis, and I will wait and see with the weighting. But I do think that there are significant differences in the representation across the borough. And to do a political analysis, as we are a political council, if you take, for instance, the top 4 Labour-held wards and the top 4 Conservative-held wards, there is a disparity between the representation. And although I believe that that may have been weighted out, it was a significant, statistically significant difference. And certainly on kind of the statistical test, when you get p-values and things, it didn't look representative. And I'm just concerned that if we are basing a corporate plan on this, that we don't have a clear voice, because there hasn't been enough representation from other areas.
Well, before I bring Councillor Bell in, I'm going to completely disagree with what you're talking about, because it seems to me that you're implying there was some political jiggery-pokery going on, which is clearly not the case. It was an independent...
Can I clarify? That's not. What I'm saying is that there are barriers to accessing certain people. And if you are looking at the demographics that have answered, they are more likely to be, say, available during the day. And I'm not sure how...
Well, I can give you assurances that the marketing company that carried out this did extensive work on trying to, contact people at different times during the day, and all the rest. We as an administration wanted to be as inclusive as possible. So, you asked the question of the people that carried out, and I think we wait for the results. So, with all due respect, to ask the question again of somebody that doesn't know how they weighted it and all the rest, because I am not an expert in marketing, is somewhat churlish, to say the least. We should wait till the response comes back from the people that actually carried out the work, and then if you're not happy, then raise it with them again. But the point you're making, as I say, I disagree with, because it was completely independent, and they did. We as an administration, as I say, wanted to be as inclusive as possible, and that's what happened. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important that we get to the bottom of this, because this document is potentially extremely valuable. And we employed a company that is statistical experts who assure us, and they give us the confidence levels, percentage confidence levels either way. So it tells you what the percentage might be either way, based on the weightings they've done. And they are assuring us that within those confidence levels, this is representative of our borough. And if they ask everybody in the borough the same questions, they are confident that we would get those answers within those confidence levels. Nobody's going to make it exact. And I think it's really important that we don't undermine this work, because we can rely on it. But if we need more assurance that we can rely on it, then we should ask them to give it to us, which you've done. And so presumably we will get that. But we all need to be satisfied it is a representative sample, because we need to base our policies and our actions on it. So, and they are the experts, and statistics, as we all know, can be a nightmare. And they are the ones that can do all the statistical analysis. Okay.
I wasn't suggesting for a minute there was jiggery-pokery. What I was suggesting was there are barriers, especially to people who are working long days, and that it does give a bias, especially when we look at the ages. We don't have the representations. I was not suggesting that there was a jiggery-pokery, but I am suggesting there are more barriers in maybe capturing the data from people.
Okay, fair.
And it may have left an unconscious bias.
Okay, but I'll refer you to the concept of that I made some moments ago, that I know that they try to contact people that by the telephone at all different times of the day, including I think somebody was contacted about 8:45 one so it's and throughout the day. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Chair, for your indulgence. I wasn't going to raise this point. It was made very eloquently earlier by Councillor Simmons. But again, it's this, I, as a local representative, is that I note that there are 30 votes from Waterloo. I totally take on board the point that Councillor Bell made, that we are looking to do something across the entire borough, and across the entire borough, those weightings will mean that we get a representation of the entire borough. Representing the entire borough is an important consideration of mine, but a secondary one. I'm here to represent my ward primarily as a first port of call, and therefore I've written it down to try and see if I can get the granular data and seeing what's there. And I'm sure we all have an idea of what are views within our borough, within our individual wards. But obviously, the more information that we can have, we're going to want to take that. And some of the sample size of 30, there are skews potentially of demographics. There, is a one I'm very concerned about. When we talk about access to service around certain demographics, I'd be delighted if 20 of them actually were from the 16 to 34 age. I suspect that actually it's much more likely that 20 are going to be from the 60 to 74 age group, whose voices I hear very regularly anyway in terms of that engagement. If there was one possibility in terms going forward as well, but if we are going to do this piece of work again, as a believer in local democracy representation, as we surely are, I'd like to see that if actually the question is asked, have you voted? I don't care how you voted, but actually it'd be interesting to see percentages of people who felt that the council wasn't doing a good job, whether they were motivated to go and vote, or whether they're motivated to not vote in the future. Thank you.
I agree with Councillor Shear. That would be a very interesting question. Whether you can actually ask that would be quite interesting. Yeah, itself. Councillor Wackles.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Bell said actually, and say that we all need to have confidence in this because it could potentially be a very important document going forward. So I'd like to endorse that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kath James will obviously follow up the questions that have been raised tonight, and it's Kath online. She's nodding to agree, and clearly, Councillor Cosling, you mentioned the corporate plan. Clearly, one would hope that this obviously forms, but it would be the last. Obviously, members will have a say in the corporate plan moving forward too. So. The recommendation was to discuss, ask, etc. So I think that's now been done. So we'll move back now to item number 10, which is the proposed 3-year capital programme. As I say, it was set out in Appendix B. Any comments or queries? No, I shall move that from the chair, seconded by Councillor Simmons. All those in favour? And abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Item number 11 is the General Fund Revenue Budget 23-24 revised and 2024-25 estimates. So the report covers the revised budget for the 23-24 and an estimate of expenditure for 24-25, together with the forward commitments for 2025-26 through to 27-28 for the Executive Board budgets. I'm assuming I'm going to move that from the chair, seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour? And abstentions again. Thank you very much. And the same for item number 12, which is the General Fund Revenue Estimate Summary, 2023-24 revised, and tax set of 2024-25. Clearly, this makes a recommendation to be considered at full council next week. The council tax and overall budget for this next financial year in line with the medium-term strategy that the council has recently adopted. I'll move it from the chair, seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour? And abstentions again. Thank you. That is carried. Okay, item number 13 is the Pay Policy Statement 2024-25. The council is under a duty under the Localism Act 2011 to publish a pay policy statement agreed by full council, which will be subject to review at least annually. This report details the areas to be covered in the pay policy statement, which is recommended to the full council. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Just a query about we're considering this now, but there are other items later in the confidential section that may be impacted on it. I don't know whether it's worth reconsidering this at a different time or whether it just needs to go through now.
No, but yeah, I think what's in the goal is well set. You know, it is in effect separate. But
so
sorry. Oh, sorry. Chief Executive.
Thanks.
Yes, no problem with that. Just to say that the policy is different to the exercises that have been taken out in the Gold report. So this is a continuation of the policy you've had before. There's radical changes. So I don't know whether that helps to distinguish it, but happy for both of them to be discussed at the same time.
Okay, so I'll move that from the chair, seconded by Councillor Simmons. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. Item number 14 is the External Auditor's Annual Report 2020-21. The report presents the annual audit report received from the Council's external auditor, Ernst & Young LLP, further to the presentation at the meeting of this board in November. Any comments? Where is Councillor Gosling?
Thank you. It was more about the valuation of the council dwellings where we seem to have a misstatement, or 3 misstatements. And I wonder if there's more detail there.
I'm going to hand to Alison.
All of that detail came in the report that was on the 27th of November. There we go.
I thought I'd seen it before.
Yeah,
just
just
caught
it.
it.
This is that's why this one is just the note, because this is just the final part.
Thank you.
Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chairman. Given the very full answers that the representatives of the auditors gave when they appeared before the council, I don't see how I can do other than propose the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. So it has been moved and seconded by Councillor Simmons. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 15 is the Safer Warwickshire Partnership Serious Violence 2024 to 2030. The report asks the Executive Board to endorse the strategy further to the Council's serious violence duty set out under the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022. But also advises members of the work done with the Warwickshire Partnership aimed at preventing and tackling serious violence. Any comment? Councillor Gosling.
I think that this report is very in-depth at looking at the causes for violence, and it's obviously something that's quite close to my heart and something that we've talked about a number of times in safe communities and for council. And I think that there is a massive amount of good, and I don't want to underplay it. One of my concerns is when it gets to the recommendations and what we're going to do, there seems to be an awful lot of policy writing and action planning and training, but very little actual on the ground addressing the issues and working with the young people that are at risk. And I just wanted reassurances really all for it to be fed back that is actually where we make the difference. It's the implementation of the policies and the action plans, not the actual writing of them. And whereas it does seem to be very much a strategic needs pathway, when you get down to the personal statements and the heartbreaking story of the young person at the end, when it comes underneath and it says what we're going to do about it, it all seems to be very office-based things, and I would very much like to see a more practical approach and some more details. Youth clubs or support networks or whether it be mentors or programs like that I just think are essential that are no longer with us, have been successful in the past, and would very much like to see them again. And it just doesn't give enough detail of the actual interventions that are going to be done. Thanks.
No, thank you. Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Chair. Many years ago, when I can't remember if I was town council or a borough council, I attended a loudmouth session down at Addiston High School. They are so good. I can't remember been invited to one in this area for a long time. There was one I was watching, it was actually on my iPad at home, where they'd done one in London, and that was all about knife crime. And they said in that just one school, the knife crime dropped by, I think it was like 42% of them finding knives. And another one was drugs. I know the one they'd done at Atherstone High School at the time was teenage pregnancies. Can we just inquire, are these still in our area? And if they aren't, why are they not? Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Councillor. Becky.
I can answer that. So we've done some work in Hartsville recently, so commissioned Loudmouth to go in there following some recent incidents. We're also in talks with Loudmouth at the moment to do all the schools across the borough from various topics.
Thanks, Becky. Okay, I mean, I share your comments, Councillor Gosling. Absolutely. I mean, I guess, well, for a start, we can feed, obviously, the comments into Safer Sub as they continue to get the updates. And all we can hope, I guess, is that we're sort of, I guess, a small cog in a big wheel as a borough council, because the lead authorities are clearly, the police, health, and the county on this. But we will continue to feed in, I think, as I say, through Safer Sub, as the work continues, and hopefully, as you say, the work needs to be done on the ground rather than sitting in offices writing reports. But that's so could be said for quite a lot of things, couldn't it? Really. Let's get people on the streets rather than sitting in offices writing reports. That would be good. So I shall move that from the chair, seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Item number 16 is the electoral review, future council size. So, as members are aware, the Local Government Boundary Commission is undertaking an electoral review of the borough, which will review and implement new proposals for the number of councillors and the shape, number and size of ward boundaries. Councillors and political parties can make individual representations to the Commission on the review. However, it is expected that the Council will respond. The initial issue relates to the size of the Council, and the recommendation is set out in the report, and as discussed with the advisory group, is to increase the size of the Council from 35 members to 39. Anybody got any comments, queries?
Second.
Thank you. So I'll move it in. Councillor Gosling has seconded that. All those in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Excuse me. Item number 17 is the Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service proposed service model consultation. So there was a presentation given by the fire service prior to the executive. And the report sets out the main proposals, and members have had the opportunity of that briefing prior to the meeting. A consultation event also took place at Atherstone Memorial Hall last Thursday. And members are asked to suggest any comments that officers will then forward to the Fire and Rescue Service.
Have you said enough?
I think I have, yeah.
I should just let you know, any comments that were made at that briefing, the Chief Exec will be picking up and passing on. So
that's what I was going to ask. I was also going to ask if I asked, when we had to leave, I asked if one of my colleagues could clarify if there was going to be more consultation. And I don't know the answer to that question, whether, because they are saying there's going to be significant changes to the model that comes forward. It would be good if we get, another opportunity to go back and look at what's actually being presented rather than just a theory.
Okay, I don't know the answer to that either.
Okay.
But we can ask that question, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you.
So everybody happy? As I say, the Chief Exec's picked up the comments made at the briefing, and we'll pass those on. Okay. Okay, so I'll move the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Item number 18 is the minutes of the Safer Communities Subcommittee held on the 20th of November 23. Any comments or queries? Okay. Item number 19 is the minutes of the Senior Management Recruitment Recruitment Subcommittee held on the 27th of November 2023. Comments? No. Okay. Moving on then, item number 20 is the exclusion of the public and press. To consider, in accordance with section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, whether it is in the public interest that the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure or exempt information as defined by Schedule 12A to the Act. Move that. Chair, seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour?